To discuss more on the deadly Washington shooting, I'm joined in the studio by David Hyde, an independent security expert. David, thank you so much for coming into studio.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it. So what are police and investigators focusing on right now?
Well, I mean, I think that they're going to be looking at really trying to narrow down whether this was one individual or more. And what it seems like to me is that it was one individual that was perpetrated this crime.
Why do you say that?
Well, there was some rumors earlier in the day that there were more people involved. They've gradually eliminated those other aspects. And now it seems as though this was more than likely a disgruntled employee or someone that had an axe to grind with their employer. This person, it seems, used to be a Navy reservist and actually was serving for a few years before being discharged. So I think there's a lot of things around possible motive to do with prior service and having some type of an axe to grind with the workplace. But another mass shooting, more senseless loss of life, and obviously another tragedy today.
Most definitely. When we hear the possibilities of how he gained access, perhaps getting somebody else's access card, when you think of a secure place, a naval yard like this, you would hope that there would be more than just a security badge to get you through.
That's right. I mean, typically we call it in the industry defense in depth, and there ought to be multiple layers of security, and the more high security installation you're in, the more layers and the more complexity there is. So it's quite troubling to hear that on a high security installation like this, somebody could get through with somebody else's ID card. There ought to be multiple authentication, multiple levels of security to get through. You ought not to be able to use someone else's access card. And the other thing too, this person, we believe, was a contractor to the military at some point, very possibly at that location. How was this person screened? What type of rigor was put in? Was this person suitable to be in the environment? And was this person supervised and exhibited any behaviors of concern before this event happened?
And what about metal detectors? Is it possible that he gained the ammunition, the gun, on site, or brought it in with him?
I think it would be unlikely that he'd access it on site unless he had access to those areas. It typically is the case that the more secure areas on the base that have ammunition, have firearms, and that might have sensitive information would be much better protected than the outer layers. So I very much doubt that he could access those firearms there. He more than likely brought them on with him, which again begs the question, what type of searching protocols were in place? How did this person get through the outer layers of security without being screened?
My producer was just telling me apparently he was contracted to start work there. So I guess maybe he did have a level of clearance, but also you think if there was some sort of disgruntled situation before, files should be kept, should they not, on certain people?
Yes, I mean, and this, of course, is a valid concern for all workplaces, and it's really around threat management. This individual obviously had some issues in and around past conduct. From what we've heard, he was let go from the reserves. He had conduct issues in the past, and there'd been some dealings with the police in terms of discharging firearms in public in the past. So these are all red flags that ought to have been flagged, and they ought to have put on someone's radar screen, is this the kind of person that should be here? And I'm surprised this person would have got through a clearance and was about to start work there. It really does raise questions about the veracity of the screening process and the levels of security on the outer perimeter.
Absolutely, and we also heard during the press conference that, of course, after the investigation, they will look at all the data and change security possibly accordingly. What more do you think can be done?
Well, I mean, I think there are a few things to look at here. I mean, first of all, how are we screening contractors before we let them onto our sites? One of the disconnects here often, Jennifer, is the fact that when it's a contract employee, who are they beholden to? They're employed by somebody that's off the site, but they're beholden to the management on the site. And it's very often things can fall between the cracks there in terms of overseeing this person. And if we see things that aren't really right with this person, who do we go to? What do we do?
Right.
But it really is firming up the layers of security, and you ought never to be able to get into an area like that with an ID badge and no vehicle search, no need for you to enter perhaps a code into a PIN pad or do another layer of authentication to make sure that you are who you say you are, because anybody can find an ID and get themselves into a secure area like that.
Absolutely. David Hyde, independent security expert. Thank you for coming into studio, and thank you for your expertise.
You're welcome.